I actually work in research and development. And for any of you who don't know, BMS is a pharmaceutical company. So in research and development, specifically, I am in process development. So my job is to help create and develop the process for making various drugs at our company.
So did you always know you wanted to work in this field?
Definitely not. So when I was younger, I really loved sports. I can remember in 4th grade writing that I wanted to be a professional soccer player, then it transitioned to basketball. So I would say probably not until I was in high school. I had a really awesome math teacher, and he was just really, he connected with the students. He was very good at what he did. And he encouraged me to go into engineering. And so from there, I would say even in college, I was a little confused as to what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I kind of stumbled upon an internship with a different pharmaceutical company that I realized that this was really exciting and it was a way to help people. So yeah, definitely not always, probably not until halfway through college, I realized that this is what I wanted to do.
So we've kind of been hearing that from all of our presenters this month, that, you know, a lot of students are told they have to know what they want to do in middle school now to set the track. And a lot of times that path towards a career is really not a straight line. So tell us a little bit about what college was like for you.
Yeah, so I ended up graduating with a chemical engineering degree, and I have a minor in biotechnology. But when I went in my freshman year, I started on a biomedical engineering track. So still engineering, but not what I ended up with, of course. And as I was taking chemistry courses and talked to other students that were there, particularly some older students, I realized that for me personally, because I wasn't sure, transitioning to chemical engineering, just kind of, it wasn't as focused as what I started with in biomedical engineering. So it would open more doors just from a stance that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So definitely college was a wake-up call for me. I was definitely a straight A student growing up and didn't have to work too hard. And then when I got to college, really tough, super competitive. And there were times I wanted to quit and I didn't. So definitely, like, I would say just in general, don't get discouraged. You're smart. If you're determined, you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's very true. And we've heard that, again, from a lot of people that, you know, it was usually that one internship, that one teacher who kind of sets you on your path. So we've talked a lot about networking. So where did you go to college?
So I went to college at North Carolina State University in Raleigh. And for me, so I grew up in New Jersey. I went to a small high school and I wanted to just be able to go further away when I still had a home base in New Jersey.
So did you find that you had a good support network at school to find internships and to, you know, get together with your classmates and things like that? Were you able to build a network?
Yeah, definitely. So where NC State, where I went to college, it's a huge university, but the College of Engineering is much smaller. And then within that college, the chemical engineering network is even smaller. So how I found my internship, they encourage co-op programs at NC State. So the co-op program, it's an internship, but you actually take semesters off and work full time. So it took me 5 years to graduate instead of 4, but I graduated with a year of experience. And how I got my internship was through my academic advisor at school. And yeah, all of our classmates are super close. We worked through a lot of homework problems together, and everyone was just really encouraging and supportive.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's not something you realize till you get to college, that if you're not sure, it will happen when you're there. You know what I mean? Or you change your major. You're like, if you're unsure right now in high school, when you get there, there'll be those opportunities and those new ideas coming, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So at your current job, tell us what a typical day is like, or a typical work week, like what you're up to.
Sure. And I'm sorry if people know this, but I didn't know it, so I'm just going to explain. So there's different types of pharmaceuticals. So there's what they call small molecule, which is more just mixing there's more to it, but it's essentially you're working with chemicals, so they're not living things. And then there's biologics, where you're actually working with different animal cells to produce drugs. And now I'm working in a newer type of pharmaceuticals, which it's called cell therapy. So with cell therapy, we're actually currently working with human blood. So I just wanted to explain that. So because we're working with human blood, the cells are living, you have to take care of them all the time. So sometimes I have to work on the weekends because cells don't stop growing. But so the typical work week or the typical work day, I would come in, most people do their lab work in the morning. So I probably have about 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours of lab work, depending on what day of the process it is. And then you would take care of, there's a lot of data that needs to be analyzed, and a lot of tracking, because you need to document things very well if they're going to support any sort of drug filing with the FDA. So I'm about half in the lab, half at my desk. And a typical experiment for me is about 7 days. So we'll usually start the experiment on a Wednesday and finish on a Monday or Tuesday. And like I said, I'll go in on the weekends, but it's just to take care of the cells, and then I can go home.
It's like a little bit like science babysitting.
Yes, definitely.
No, I'm glad you explained that, because I don't know anything about this field. So it's interesting to me to hear about the different things. So maybe some of our students already know this. Some of them I know are going into a similar field. So tell us something that's one of your favorite things about your job.
Yeah, so I just really like knowing that I'm helping people. So the field I'm working in now specifically, they're trying to make it so that there's more generic, not generic, but you can create bulk drug substance. But currently how it is if there's a patient who's sick, we get their blood, we engineer their blood, and that blood goes directly back to that patient. So it's really a one-to-one, and not that when we don't get a patient's blood and it's like, this is Sarah's blood and it's going back to Sarah. But we do actually have the opportunity sometimes, patients will volunteer to come on site, and they talk through their experience. And I really just get to see like how much of a difference that I'm making, that our company is making. So I would say that's my favorite part of my job right now.
Wow, that's really cool. Would you mind telling us something that you don't love about your job?
I don't like cleaning the lab. So that's my least favorite part.
But it's got to be done.
Yeah.
So tell us something that most people might not know about your job, like something that maybe would surprise people.
What people may not know. Trying to think. I'm not sure. Yeah, so a lot of, maybe this is new to some people. So a lot of the work we do, everything has to remain sterile. So when we're working on something, it has to be in a closed system, or it has to be in a biosafety cabinet. So for people who don't know, the biosafety cabinet, it has filters. and there's specific airflow so that the only air that's going over your product is clean air. So that's definitely something not everyone is necessarily good at, but you can definitely learn to be better at it. So
interesting. So I already have some questions coming in the chat. I may throw in some additional ones, but my first question here is, do you think not knowing what you want to be or do when you're older is a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's good or bad. I think everyone has their own path. Just for an example, my younger brother said he wanted to do physical therapy, graduated college with an exercise science degree, and after graduating decided he didn't want to do that anymore. And he's doing just fine. He found a job doing something else. So again, I don't think it's good or bad. It's different for different people.
I absolutely agree. I started out as an instrumental performance major, and now I'm a librarian because I didn't even know being a librarian was really a career option for me. So I totally agree with that. I think there's time to change your mind. I think as long as you excel at whatever you're currently working on and you get good grades and try your best, then it's not like you're failing, you're just switching. I think there's a lot of people who don't graduate college with the job that they had thought they would do in high school.
Yes,
it's very rare, very rare. My next chat question is there a lot of math involved in your job?
There's definitely math, and it is, it kind of depends like exactly where you go. So I would say the math I do day to day is more like just your basic algebra. But then when you start getting into data analysis, there's a lot more statistics involved. And in my previous job, I used to work in biologics and I was working with bioreactors. So with bioreactors, there's a lot of mass transfer that goes on. So you want to understand, and I'm sorry if this is overcomplicating, but you want to understand if you're adding oxygen to your bioreactor, how fast is the water that's in there consuming the oxygen. So again, it kind of depends what path you go, but currently I'm more, I would say algebra and statistics based.
So that was one of the other questions I meant to ask you, so your job is cool and interesting, and you probably also work with other really cool and interesting people. What kind of jobs in your workplace are like adjacent to your job? Like what other things would kids be able to go into?
Gotcha. Yeah. So like I said, so I work in process development. But so what we do is we actually grow the cells and then freeze them, and we hand them off to a different group, and they're called analytical development. So that group is actually running any test on the samples that we give to them. I'm trying to, legally I'm not allowed to say too much, but so you'll have different parameters from your samples that you want to understand and what levels certain things are at. So another group called analytical development will run our samples for us. We also work closely just with even project managers because we are working on projects that have a timeline and a life cycle and support the growth and success of the business. So your project managers check in and tell you, you know, this milestone needs to be done at this time. And then even just as basic as we have a warehouse team. So any materials we need, warehouse and supply chain, whatever materials we need, we have to ask that group to supply us with those materials. We have a lab support group and Environmental Health and Safety, EHS. And that group makes sure we're doing everything safely, that our labs are safe, they're being kept up to code. They help dispose of our waste that we're generating in lab. So there are a lot of different functions. I'm sure I'm forgetting some.
Yeah, no, so there's a lot of different like jobs and career paths, even in this one company or one field of work. It's for someone who wanted to go into a job like yours, how would you suggest they prepare right now? Like what classes, SAT subject tests, etc.?
So definitely, I would, in high school, I would definitely take as high level math courses as you can, and any sort of advanced science courses. So you'll definitely, in college, you'll have to take a bunch of different calculuses, differential equations, physics is big, and specifically for me, because I did chemical engineering, I took a lot of chemistry courses in college. So yeah, I would definitely focus on math and science courses. Statistics, I would say, is definitely helpful, and I wish I knew statistics better, but definitely for an engineering type degree, it's less statistics and more calculus based.
And you mentioned that you also have a minor as well, right?
Yes.
What was your minor in?
So I did it in biotechnology. So that involved a lot of, I had to take biology courses, biochemistry. I took a bioreactor course at the school I went to. And I don't remember what, it's been a while.
So did you decide to add a minor before you had this internship or after you kind of knew what you wanted to be after college?
I did it before the internship, but definitely not right when so the chemical engineering program that I went into, they had actually had a lot of different minors. So there was a biotechnology minor, but there was also a paper science minor, green energy. So a lot of different paths. So I think I took 1 or 2 classes before deciding what minor to actually move towards.
So do they encourage all the students in your program to get a minor as well?
Yeah, they encouraged the minor, but it also, for our programs, it didn't add a bunch of extra work. It just limited or controlled what electives you took.
Okay, so it kind of just focused your college career a little bit more.
Yes.
Okay, that's actually sounds a pretty good way to get a minor.
Yes.
That's awesome. What do you see job growth for your profession in the future?
Yes, definitely. So I personally know eventually I would like to move more into a management role or a project management role. So I love working in the lab, and it's definitely a very good background to have. You understand the science and what goes in to drug development, and the path that needs to be taken to have a drug approved by the FDA. But I'm a very organized person, and I like seeing things progress, and I like seeing all different groups work together. So the project manager really helps coordinate between all the different groups for the success of the project.
Where is your lab located?
So I'm in Warren, New Jersey.
Oh, you're in New Jersey. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the other jobs you had, like leading up to where you're in your position now.
Yeah. So my internship in college, I worked for a biotechnology company. So that was in the biologics type of pharmaceuticals. And there I worked in a pilot scale lab. It was still process development, but I actually worked with very large bioreactors. So I was working with 200 or 300 liter bioreactors. We even had a 1,000 liter bioreactor. So that was cool. It was a little intimidating when I first started, but it was all good. And then when I first graduated from college, I started working for a small molecule pharmaceutical company in New Jersey. And in that role, I was technical support for manufacturing. So I had to write they're called batch records. So it's the step-by-step process of how to make the drug. That an operator making the drug would have to like go line by line and sign off that they did everything. And anytime there was a batch going on, I had to be present just in case there were any questions. So that was my first job out of college. My second job out of college, I went back into biologics, and I started working. So backtracking, BMS bought Celgene. So I was working for Celgene in biologics, and I had to help create the first biologics lab at Celgene. So we had to order all of the equipment, install all of the equipment, make sure everything was working properly, and develop different processes for all the different bioreactor systems we had. So then from there, I didn't switch companies, I just switched roles. So now I'm where I'm at now.
So I have a question in the chat about salaries. Like, since you're in New Jersey, especially, I think it's important. A lot of these kids, you know, want to make enough money to live. The salaries, I'm assuming, are a good range.
Yeah.
I'm changing the question a little bit, but
yeah.
I'm going to ask you directly how much money you make. But
I'm definitely, I'm by no means rich or living lavishly, but I definitely live comfortably, I would say. And I would say I've been living comfortably since even with my first job out of college.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, guys, waiting for questions. Don't be shy. So much of what you're talking about is like, is so beyond me. I think I don't know anything about some of this stuff.
No, and so my husband was a finance major, and when I go home and I'm like stressed and I'm trying to explain what went on, I'm like, okay, do you remember this, this, and this? And I just like try to explain it as relatable to like real world things as possible. And he's like, oh, okay. And he might just humor me sometimes, but.
Well, even when you were talking about writing out the instructions and overseeing, I'm picturing you as like writing a recipe and like watching the cooks in the kitchen. Like that's
yeah.
I'm kind of picturing it. Yeah. How many hours a week do you work average?
So recently I've been working much longer, but usually it's about 40 hours a week. I would say too, where I've been lucky enough where the jobs I'm working, they acknowledge that we do have to work on the weekends. So, you know, if you work a few hours less or a few hours more Monday through Friday, it's okay. And they also will let us, if we work on the weekends, you get an unofficial comp day, so you can take a day off during the week or save it and take extra vacation time. So
nice.
Yeah.
Were you a big chemistry fan in high school? I definitely am not.
I hated chemistry in high school. And I feel like I left chemistry in high school and was kind of like, what did I learn other than the periodic table? And then I took my first chemistry course in college, and I was like, wow, like this is kind of cool, actually. And I would say with chemical engineering, it's much more like applied chemistry. You have to understand like the different, and I say understand, everything you get to look up in a table, so you're not memorizing things. But yeah, it's much more like, what are the properties of this chemical? And then, so if I'm I have a mixture of these two chemicals and I need to separate them, what properties are going to allow me to separate them type thing. So but yeah, did not like chemistry in high school at all.
If you didn't work in your current career, what would you like to do instead?
I would love to work for Yelp and do food reviews. I'm such a foodie. I love going to restaurants and new places.
Do you look around a restaurant the way you look around your lab, like make sure it's like clean and stuff like that? Like, do you feel like that?
I actually do it more at home with my husband. So my husband's a chef, and if he like puts raw chicken on the counter, I'm like, are you gonna wipe that? And then, so recently what I've been doing is like, he'll put something on the counter and then something else touches it. And I'm like, that's contaminated. And now this is contaminated because you took it from here and moved it over here. And so I drive him insane, but.
But you're not wrong.
Yeah.
A question that is somewhat related to a previous one. What are some extracurricular activities that a student can take to prepare for a career in this field? That's an excellent question.
Yeah, if there's any sort of like extra science courses, my high school offered an intro to engineering course, which wasn't totally applicable in college, but definitely was a step in the right direction.
What do you think about like an engineering club? Like even if it wasn't really science-based, would that be something that could be helpful?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. If it's engineering, science, math, I would say any of those would definitely help moving forward.
So to become like a math elite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Go through the chat here. Any other tips that you would give students if they were interested in this field?
Definitely try to network, and don't burn bridges, maintain good relationships. With the first job I got out of college was kind of just lucky. My dad was talking to someone who worked for the company I ended up working for, and heard he was a chemical engineering major. And my dad said to him, my daughter's a chemical engineering major. So that kind of worked out. But the last two jobs, so my previous job, someone from my internship actually called me and asked if I'd be interested in a position. And then this job, that same person who brought me on moved to a new position, and he asked me to move with him. So definitely network, work hard, maintain good relationships, try to get to know people, and just, you don't know who will be able to help you out in the future.
That is so true. Yeah, I said this last week also. We were talking about something similar, and I said just be nice to everyone, because you never know who, you know, might, and also be careful about your social media, because if somebody is going to network with you or maybe offer you a job, they're going to look you up, and you want to make sure that you're, you know, squeaky clean.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, and the being nice to everyone, even at work, like if you need help with something and you kind of like need someone else to help you, it helps if you're nice to people, because they're more willing to help you. So. Yeah.
Okay, I have two questions, and then I want to throw in one of my own. Okay, this is a weird question, but there are videos on pharmaceutical TikTok in which people count medicine to put into bottles. What are your thoughts on that?
I have no idea. I don't know what that is. So I think so people counting medicine into bottles, that's more, if I'm interpreting it correctly, it is more pharmacist related. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Okay, if the person who chatted that, if you want to elaborate a little bit, we'll try to, we can come back to that one. The other question is, how different is biomedical engineering and chemical engineering?
I definitely took, so I took a lot more chemistry courses, where biomedical takes not necessarily more biology courses. They actually end up going in kind of a mechanical engineering route. A lot of people that study biomedical, and this doesn't mean this is what you have to do if you do biomedical engineering, but a lot of people that I graduated with biomedical, they either actually went to med school or they work for a medical device company. So the medical device company, you need more of the mechanical engineering to design prosthetics or design different, I'm forgetting, but like you could potentially design syringes for like how you would inject or deliver the drug. So that's where you need the more mechanical and less chemistry.
Has COVID-19 changed your company, your job, anything that you're working on?
Yes. So as I said earlier, I'm pretty much in the lab every day. So when COVID-19 hit, they had everyone, it was mandatory work from home. And they have started slowly bringing people back on site based on different timelines and promises they've made to the FDA. So I came back on site because if we didn't start development, we would have to postpone a filing. So when I first came back on site, it was like a skeleton crew here. So there was barely anyone on site. And now we are working at about a quarter of the capacity of the site. So no, they're limiting the number of people that can walk through the door and making sure there's enough space. I have to wear a mask all day. I have my mask off right now because I'm in an office with the door closed, but outside of that, it's mandatory to have the mask on. So it's definitely changed. We have a lot of fun in the lab. There's usually a bunch of people working in there, and we usually have music on and chatting. But so it's definitely quieter, but still getting the job done.
Still, you got to go in and babysit the blood.
Yes.
Is there anything that, like product-wise, or anything that the company has shifted towards because of this?
So our company has not. Most of the so our company doesn't really work with viruses. So we did not move towards the trying to create a vaccine for COVID-19.
Anybody else? I think a lot of these, our students have a lot more of a science background than me. But I'm excited for this next generation because I have a lot of faith in them about their careers and their worldviews and their political views. And I'm proud of you guys, and I put a lot of faith into them.
Yes.
One of our students wants to know if you like reading.
I wish I did, but I really don't like reading. And I know, like, even growing up, I would read and I would like fall asleep halfway through a chapter. So unfortunately, I don't. I keep trying to get into it. Kelly keeps she's like, I'll recommend books for you. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention this, but Miss Nicole's sister-in-law actually works at the library in Monroe. She sometimes sits at the welcome desk. You've probably seen her around. Job growth for the profession. I think we talked a little bit about that. Is there a certain sector that you see growing more than others in your field?
I mean, just from like the up and coming. So cellular therapeutics or gene therapy, it's definitely the up and coming area. And there's a lot of development going on. And I mentioned it before, but it's super personalized right now. So you're taking a patient's blood and that patient is going directly, or that blood's going directly back to that patient. So they're trying to develop different processes where you could have a universal donor, essentially. So you could create bulk drug product with this specific therapy. So there's a lot going on in this field.
So would that field of gene therapy require the same sort of degrees that you got in college?
Yeah, I would say just with, you might be able to go more focused and do, I work, there is bioengineering majors now, or you could do biological engineering. But I would say or at least what helped me most was internships in college. So yeah. I would try to focus your internships towards what you're thinking you might want to do in the future.
Yeah, that's a really good way to figure out if it's actually right for you or not, while still maybe earning college credit.
Yeah, definitely.
So even though you went to school out of state, are there New Jersey colleges that you think have a really good program for students who want to stay local?
Definitely. Rutgers has a really great program. NJIT, TCNJ, and there's definitely New York universities. I don't know off the top of my head, but they definitely have great engineering programs also.
How about for a student who wanted to go far away? What college do you think, if money were no option?
Yes. So NC State actually has a great engineering program, and they work closely. There's Research Triangle Park is a corporate park down there. So there's various pharmaceutical companies in that area. Otherwise, I don't know specific. I would say it's probably helpful to go to a university that's also near a location that has a bunch of that industry. So out in the Bay Area or San Francisco, there's also a lot of pharmaceutical companies. So I'm sure there's schools in that area that have great engineering programs.
That's a really good point, actually. Like, go to school where you think you might want to live and work, or where you could get jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Were you part of any clubs, organizations, or sports teams, etc., while you were in college?
Yeah, so I actually, I participated in, it was called, I forget the name of the club, but essentially we would take the grease and leftover oil from the cafeterias on campus, and we tried to make biodiesel or biofuel out of it. So that was one of the clubs that I was a part of. It was cool.
I had no idea where you were going with that when you started that sentence.
Yeah, it was very,
really cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, so one of the professors, NC State is also a big ag school, agriculture school. So yeah, we were working out of like a barn. So it smelled because there were a bunch of animals there also, but it was cool. It was interesting.
Sounds like my first year at Rutgers also.
Yeah.
Because I lived in the building next to the sheep.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But that's cool, because if you have a school that has an agricultural department and good science programs, there's lots of opportunity there to maybe get your hands dirty and kind of do more hands-on stuff while you're in college. Is that accurate? Yeah. I
would think so. And it doesn't need to necessarily be agriculture, but when you're looking for schools, I would look for what type of extracurriculars they have.
So what do you like to do when you're not at work? Like, how do you de-stress?
So We just got a puppy. So the puppy takes up a lot of our time. And it's not really de-stressing, but I'm actually going back to school. So part-time, I'm getting a master's in engineering management. So I only started that about a year and a half ago. And it's hopefully helping me work towards the project management path. Other than that, again, I love food, baking. I try to exercise. It doesn't always happen. But yeah, that's really it.
I think it kind of actually makes sense that you would be a good cook because you like understand, you know, levels of mixing things and like maybe how different foods work better together. I don't know. I feel like you might have a good brain for cooking then.
Yeah, so I actually, I recently binge watched the Great British Baking Show. And it seemed so, like, I can't believe I didn't realize it before, but there's a lot of science behind baking, which I find really interesting. So I've been slowly trying more risky recipes. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's like very specific measurements, temperatures, cook times. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your master's program.
Yeah, so it's a master's in engineering management. It's part-time, it's all online, and it's actually through the University of Arizona. So it's called engineering management because they were just looking to give, not just looking, but it's based towards people with engineering or science backgrounds who are looking to get into management. So some courses I've taken, I had to take a law class. I took a project management class, supply chain, cost estimation class, which was interesting. So that went into building cost models based on historical data so that you can more accurately predict how much something's going to cost you or cost your company in the future. And then I've also had to take quality engineering classes. So that has to do with monitoring your process and making sure you're in control of your process. So that your product is always coming out the same way.
Same, right? Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, good luck with your program. That's
Thank
really
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have to take regular tests, classes, or workshops like every year or other year, anything like that, professional development type stuff?
So what I've experienced, so they do offer, it's a little different with the COVID-19 situation now, but there's a lot of conferences. So conferences are a good place to not only learn new things in the industry, but to network. A lot of people I've realized in our industry, they get excited to go to conferences because they know they get to see old friends or meet new people. So I would say conferences, and then occasionally on site we'll have more so writing workshops. There's a lot that goes into technical writing and being precise, but also giving enough details.
Right, yeah. It's true in the library world. Conferences are awesome and fun. And also they offer a student rate for students who want to go and network. Do you know anything, is that similar in your field?
I'm not sure, actually. It's something I could look into if anyone was interested.
I think it's worth looking into when you get to college to see like what if there's like an association or a conference happening nearby and they'll offer you a ticket for a free or student rate. That's another networking opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's cool.
And I think most people, to your point, if you introduce yourself as a student, they're happy to help you and talk to you.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Okay, guys, we're gonna let Miss Nicole go in 5 minutes or so. So if you have any last questions, please shout them out or chat them out. have you ever taken an engineering ethics class or engineering and public policy class?
I took an engineering ethics course. It was part of my minor, actually, so it was more biotech focused. So it talked about genetic modifications and GMO products. I thought it was really interesting. It's definitely interesting being in the pharmaceutical field and then talking through some of these things. So recently, our team at work decided we were going to watch a Netflix series and talk about it, and it had to do with CRISPR gene editing. And it's just interesting to hear people's opinions because it seems like we're going too far, but then you look at the past and how far we've come. So it's interesting to see, like, if we went back and had nothing, would we think what we're doing now is okay? So it's definitely interesting and thought-provoking. And I've always approached them much more open-minded, so less argumentative, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, there was the doctor in China who went too far but didn't have authorization to do so. And that's another interesting ethical aspect of it. It's like, just because you can doesn't mean you're first have permission or should do certain things.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about in that area. Do you think you could do an undergrad in biomedical engineering and get a graduate degree in chemical engineering?
Yeah, definitely. I think graduate school, like, as long as you're interested in something, I think you could switch. I don't think it needs to be chemical on chemical.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Man, these guys are ambitious. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us after this long day. It's been really interesting and awesome, and we're so appreciative. Before we go, if you guys can just unmute yourselves and say thank you, and then I will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Nicole. Really, it's really awesome. If you
Happy to do
have
it.